The governments of all 4 UK nations agree that family and friends will be allowed to meet for a small number of days over Christmas. But there's a warning that this will not be a normal festive period and that the risks of transmission of COVID-19 remain very real. Although details are still sketchy, the BBC has been told that households may be allowed to get together for 5 days. Tomorrow, Boris Johnson is expected to say more about a tougher system of tiered restrictions for England when it emerges from lockdown on December the 2nd. It's thought gyms across all 3 tiers are likely to be reopened. Here's our Deputy Political Editor, Vicki Young.
Christmas cheer, but not too much. The Prime Minister has warned us that the festive season won't be normal. But across the 4 nations of the UK, they've been trying to come up with a joint set of rules, allowing families and friends to meet up. It's not quite finalised, but in a statement, the Cabinet Office said there was a shared objective to allow some limited additional household bubbling for a small number of days. But the public will be advised to remain cautious, and wherever possible, people should avoid travelling and minimise social contact. But it's not just Christmas that ministers in England have to think about. Before that, on December the 2nd, national restrictions will end. But with coronavirus still spreading, many measures will have to stay in place.
We will be going back into a more localised approach, a tiered system, which I think is enormously welcome. It's
a much tougher tiered system.
Yes, I mean, and what I think that what people should realise is we learn more as we go through this crisis, and as we get more data, more information, we can see what works well, what doesn't, and essentially evolve our response to make sure it's as effective as it can be.
After complaints from many scientists, the new tiers will be tougher than before and more areas will be in the higher levels to keep the virus under control. But 70 of Boris Johnson's own MPs have written to tell him they won't vote for the system unless they see evidence that it will save more lives than it costs. Labour want clarity as soon as possible.
You can't just open a restaurant, open a bar, start brewing beer, getting ready for after a national lockdown overnight. You know, you need some notice of that. And all of us, from Andy Burnham, everybody else, members of the public, we need a clearer understanding about what the criteria are going to be.
Across the UK, the rules on households mixing will be relaxed for Christmas. Shoppers in London are giving that a cautious welcome.
I feel ecstatic because I miss my friends, I miss my family. So any opportunity will be so welcome.
COVID doesn't know that it's Christmas, so even if we couldn't, I would be okay with not celebrating it if it meant saving more people's lives.
I think it'll be important to see kind of what the levels are like before Christmas, but the idea of being able to celebrate with family is obviously really nice.
But the risks from COVID haven't gone away. Celebrations at Christmas could be followed by many more weeks of hardship.
And Vicki's here with me. Vicki, there's a lot going on this week. Just talk us through what we can expect.
Yeah, well, let's start with tomorrow. The Prime Minister will go to the House of Commons to announce the details of the new tier system for England come into effect once that lockdown ends on December the 2nd. Now, we do know that all 3 tiers will be toughened up. That's after complaints from lots of scientists saying actually they weren't having much of an effect. So that is likely to be bad news, I think, for pubs in that top tier 3. But gyms and non-essential retail, so most shops will be expected to be allowed to reopen in all areas. Minister's very conscious they've gone to great lengths to make them COVID secure. The 10 o'clock curfew for pubs and restaurants, that will be abandoned. Last orders will be at 10, but customers will have extra time and extra hour to drink up. Then on Tuesday at the earliest, those arrangements for Christmas, which so many people very, very keen to hear about. The Prime Minister had hoped to do that tomorrow. That has been delayed while Scotland and Wales actually sign off on this. But I'm told the most likely option is 3 households being allowed to mix for up to 5 days over the Christmas period. But just to be clear, that has not been confirmed. And there's also an announcement expected on possibility of shorter time for quarantine for travellers. That also could come on Tuesday. And then if you're in England, you have to wait till Thursday to find out which tier your area will be in. And Labour, very clear, they want to know what this is being decided on. What are the criteria for why this is being decided? The Prime Minister too getting a lot of stick from some of his backbenchers who are unhappy at these restrictions and have actually said they will vote against it.
Vicki, many thanks. Vicki Young there. So what's the likely impact of a return to the tiered system in England when lockdown ends in 10 days' time? And which areas of the country are likely to see the highest levels of restrictions? Our health correspondent Dominic Hughes reports now from West Yorkshire.
It's been a busy Sunday in Hebden Bridge in West Yorkshire. Those who could were making the most of the chance to get out and about. But even as the Christmas decorations are given a final touch, for some businesses, the days to come are filled with uncertainty.
This place is my baby. I'm worried that we're not going to make it through lockdown. We can't plan anything. We can't, think ahead about, all right, maybe in 2 weeks' time, lockdown could be lifted, but there's also the chance that it might not be.
Before this latest lockdown, the local council, Calderdale, was poised to enter Tier 3. But COVID infection rates have remained stubbornly high. So what's the right thing to do over Christmas?
I mean, look around you, this is a market that in a time of lockdown, people are desperate for connection. People want to be out meeting each other, and we have to find a balance, I guess, between COVID restrictions and the well-being and mental health of our nations.
It's very easy to focus on Christmas as the big family thing, and it is, but one Christmas might not have as big a deal for less Christmases in the future for some members of our families.
This map shows the areas with the highest rates of COVID-19 infections. In England, parts of the North West and North East, East and West Yorkshire, North Lincolnshire and the East Midlands could well find themselves back in Tier 3. Meanwhile, parts of West and Central Scotland are already in the country's highest level of restrictions until December the 11th. And Northern Ireland is facing another 2 weeks of lockdown from Friday, having just reopened some services. It's the pressure that hospitals like this one are under that is the real source of concern. They are busier now, I'm told, than they were back in the spring during the first surge of COVID. And there are concerns too over what the advice will be for people over Christmas.
I would like to see the right decisions being made based on the science. I think it's more likely that we'll be able to get together at Christmas if people stick rigidly to what's recommended at this stage. I worry that with people breaching the recommendations that we're going to be in this for the long haul.
The UK's 4 nations have agreed a more harmonised approach to allow some household mixing for a few days over Christmas. The details are still to be worked out, but the worry is that many families are determined to get together to celebrate, whatever the restrictions might be. Dominic Hughes, BBC News, Hebden Bridge.